All right, so welcome everyone to another episode of the Omar Pinto Coaching Podcast. And today I have my beautiful friend, sister, mentor, coach, confidant. Okay, she plays many roles in my life, and I love her so dearly, and grateful that I can lean on her. So, welcome Jolenny Piedra to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Omar. Grateful to be here.
So I'm grateful to have you. Now, Jolenny is a coach, among other things, okay, much like myself. And today the topic that we chose for today was the power of choice, okay? And so I'll just let Jolenny, first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself, just to kind of like give the listeners a context of who you are and what you do. And then we'll dive into the reason why the power of choice is the direction we're going to go into today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Omar. And a little bit about myself. Let's see where to start. I've been in the coaching journey for 14 years now. And I started doing coaching after having received a master's in spiritual psychology. And it's been a journey in which I've both helped a lot of people and also committed to the expansion of my own healing and my own development for a number of years. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, something that I'm deeply in love with. I think we're here all to expand and grow and evolve as humans. So something I dedicated my entire life to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's really good at it too. So the power of choice, Jolenny, kick us off.
Oh my gosh, choice. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing that we have as humans, right? If we look at animals, mammals, choice is not really something that they go about consciously. It's something that they do by instinct. And we here in the human experience have this wonderful quality that we call choice. And we are, presented with the opportunity to step into it on a moment-to-moment basis. And if we look at the meaning, the literal meaning of choice, it would say something along the lines of, it is the act of leaning into the exercise of making a decision between two or more possibilities. And if we think about that more closely, we're presenting with that. We're being presented with that all day, every day, every moment that we live for the rest of our life. And depending on, the roles that we're playing, some of us are doing that consciously, and some of us are doing that unconsciously. So for me, it feels as though, to really zoom in and lean into what that means, what is the power that I have in making choices, is truly the way that we can curate and organize our lives to align with who we are. So it is one of those topics that I'm really passionate about, not because we think or we need to think only about choice, but it's almost like we need to exercise ourselves and drive ourselves through what that means, and yeah, if I wake up every morning knowing that I have 20,000 choices as opportunities for me to really align myself and my life into the vision that I have, that is an empowering thought. That is an empowering place to be. But sometimes people wake up and they just say, well, this is what I got to do. This is what I should be, or this is where, the role that I'm here to play. And it's, to some extent, that is true. But if we really, really sink in and think about it, is, well, what choices am I making? Is this aligned with who I want to be and how I want to show up in the world? And if the answer to that question is no, then what micro adjustments can we make to really align with who we are here to be?
I love that term, micro adjustments. Tony Robbins refers to that as like the 2 millimeter shift. So a lot of times we think we have to make these dramatic changes in our lives, or, a lot of times people will come to me and say things like, oh God, got so much work to this. I like all this, it's a lot, I got to do all this. I got to make all these changes.
Mm-hmm.
I go, well, what happens is, if you can imagine a radio dial, remember those old radio dials, okay, AM, FM, okay, where you're like, you have to turn the dial to get over to the right station. Remember those?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just like I do. Okay. and so imagine that you're on 98.5 and you want to get to 102.7. Okay. And so you're going to just turn quickly until you get to about 102.7. But once you get to about 102.6, right about there, you stop moving so quickly. And now it's like, I'm going to just kind of fine tune it until it lands right on it. So I'm not moving at that speed. And most of the time when clients come to me, I'm sure when they come to you as well, right, they think that they're still turning the dial like this, right? And sometimes like, well, slow down, right? It's just a slight, maybe we just need a slight change in perception and perspective that can make all the difference in the world. If you leave California heading to Florida and the dial is off 2 millimeters to the left, you're going to end up in New York. Okay. So it's that small little shift that could make all the difference, moving along, so the micro, I like that too. I'm gonna say, maybe we just need to make a micro adjustment, right? But when it comes, a thought came.
No, I was just going to share that when I work with those who, choose to work with me, I always say, even if we're moving 1%, in the forward direction towards the right vision that you have for yourself, we're doing the right things. It's not about making 100% changes all the time. It's like, we don't have to. It serves us to see things, from the lens of like, even if I am moving 1% in the right direction for myself, then we're doing the right thing.
And real quick, right? As a coach, we do this. I do this all the time, right? I just slip and I say, we have to. And then immediately as it comes out of our mouth, I go, wait a minute. We don't have to do anything. I don't have to do it, which goes back to the topic of the power of choice, right? I don't have to pay my taxes, right? I don't have to brush my teeth. I don't have to eat healthy. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. Okay. Everything is a conscious decision and a conscious choice. Whether you embrace that concept or not, whenever I say, I have to go to work today. No, you don't. You literally don't have to go to work. Okay. You can just stay home for the next week and not call anybody. Right. And sure, there's going to be some consequences. Okay. But I don't have to do anything. Right. And so my question too, because I was thinking about that, when it comes to the power of choice and these micro decisions, how does that power of choice play a role in your life?
In my personal life?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's power of choice it's really, for me, and I would probably go through a storytelling here to be able to share what I'm saying. We love
stories.
But, when I work with people, sometimes I see predicaments. I work with a lot of couples, right, that are going through different journeys. And when I work with couples, there's the husband and the wife might say, hey, we're going through this, and I know that I have to do this, and I know that I should feel this. And, my invitation to them is, you don't have to and you shouldn't. Think about what aligns with you, what feels in alignment with you. And I can see the eyes going from side to side and the brain, because they're trying to see, like, I don't know what alignment is. And I think alignment is the driver behind everything. So when you ask me, how do I use power of choice in my life? I think about, what is it that I feel aligned to in myself? What feels that drives me to wake up every morning? And from that place, I make my choices. So my driver is that I want to do my best every day, that I want to show up, by the end of the day and feel proud of the choices that I make, that I want to give more love to the world, not less. So if that is what aligns with me and that is my vision, then all of my choices are going to be in support of that vision, that align with that vision. So that's how I wake up every morning. I check in with myself and I say, what is my vision for today? What do I want to be today? How do I want to align to who I am today? And, the world is going to throw me some curveballs, and then that's going to come through different sensations, different feelings, different moods, different triggers from the outside world. But if I know what aligns with me and I know what drives me, then my choices will be easier to make. And yeah, I think that's where we are being invited to right now in the world as a collective. It's like, what is my vision? What aligns with me? Regardless of what's going out in the external world. Yes, we are human. We're going to be affected by the news, by the stories, by the environment, by things that are happening outside of us. But if we really continue to invite ourselves to listen in to what aligns with us, to what our vision is, then the driver of the choices will be easier to access.
And, I as you were sharing, I was thinking about the choices that I've made in my life. Like I make choices every day now at 51 years old. Right? But when I think about the choices that I made when, even when I was 16 years old, I remember when I was 16 and a half years old, I made the choice to drink for the first time. I had not, up until that point, there was, I guess you could either say fear or respect, which could also be more fear, respect for my father's, guidance, which is, he used to sit with us. He used to sit with us, my sister and I, right? And anytime there was like some drug special or come kids, we're going to watch this. Okay. See what happens, with drug addicts and this kind of a thing, right? Oh, this is terrible. Oh my God. Right. So I remember those. Meanwhile, every time we'd go to a family function, half my family would just get trashed. Okay. Like heavy drinking. So there was this kind of like, almost like, oh, dad's teaching us and warning us about the potential dangers of drugs and alcohol. But this is kind of interesting. Right. And so I remember when I was 16 and a half years old and I was faced with, a decision. I was at a house party and a friend said, hey, you want a beer? And there was a little voice that says, oh, you don't drink beer. And there was another voice that said, we got to give this a shot. Right. And so there was that power of choice. And it's interesting because from that choice, at 16 and a half years old, when I made that decision to drink, every step along the way about that decision that I made in that moment has led me to this conversation we're having right now, to me even hosting a podcast, to me even being a coach. For me, all of this revolved around this choice that I made when I was 16 and a half years old to drink. And at the time, there was moments in my life where I felt that was the worst decision of my life because it sent me into alcoholism and addiction. But then the choices that I made after, right, have catapulted me in a way that now I'm able to help other people, right, who have struggled with the same situations. So that's kind of like what came to me as you were sharing that.
No, thank you for sharing. I think that's beautiful. And I mean, if we're looking at things from, for example, from this moment, that seems to me to be a higher perspective. It's almost as if you're accessing a spiritual view of what it is that has happened for you. Meaning, I can see how some of these choices that may have brought me through challenging experiences or challenging moments has actually served me, in a positive way, and has actually assisted me in exercising myself differently and being able to tap into my purpose and all these things. So I like what you're saying, because for me, I'm a huge believer that there's no right or wrong choice. And this is why I was trying to frame it from what is it that is aligned versus right or wrong, good or bad. It's like, what is it that I'm aligned to? What is it that feels aligned for me? What is my vision? And when we seek, choice making from that lens, then we release the need to be right or wrong or good or bad. It's more like, am I choosing from alignment? Am I choosing from my vision? And, as you were 16 to 36, right? You are, Oscar? I'm just kidding. But, from 16 to today, you have mastered and you have really become more sophisticated in how to listen to the instrument that speaks through you and from you, your heart. So before it was like, hey, I want to make the choices that feel this way. My vision is to have fun. My vision is to, whatever. And now that you're where you are, it's like, well, my drive is different. Mm-hmm. I want to lead my life from this place. I want to align or choose to step into the alignment that I feel today, which is X, Y, and Z. And my choices are being driven from that lens. So no, the opportunities and windows that we have on a daily basis are so powerful, and we will never make the wrong choice.
Man,
but is it in alignment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is it in alignment? That's probably the only inquiry that we really have to, that we can invite ourselves to tune into on a daily basis. And I think meditation is a great space for that. Nature is a great space for that. Silence is a great space for that. Because, when you're talking about the radio tuning, you and I come from a generation where we had less stimuli from the outside. We had less options, less lines of choices. Uh-huh. Things were easier. Do you want Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Do you want orange juice or apple juice? Right now we have an enormous amount of, I would say wonderful things in front of us, but to some people it might feel confusing because there's too many options. But again, getting back into what is my vision? What do I feel aligned to? What is it that feels true to me? And allowing ourselves to really, move from that instead of having life tell us who we're here to be and what choices we should make. What is true for me? What feels aligned for me? What is my vision for myself?
As you were saying that, right as you talked about, there is no right or wrong answers, right? I was going to ask you, what's your view on the concept of there are no wrong answers, right? And then you said that, right? I was like, of course, right? She's basically reading my mind, because that's how Jolenny and I roll, right? So ultimately, I immediately I started thinking about that, right? Like I had just remembering some clients, right? So without going into details, right? There was I remember one of my clients had a big blow up in her marriage, right? And she decided, I'm out, I'm leaving, this is it, I'm through with this, right? And she got the support of family and friends. And, she was like, I'm committed to get out. Right. Mm-hmm. And I won't go into the details of the circumstances. Right. But the reality was she was committed to stay out of the relationship. Like, I know what I want. This is my vision. I have this vision. This is what I want. Well, as we were coaching, okay, and as time went on, things started to change, right? Especially with how her husband he was making some changes. Like, he was making some pretty aggressive changes, right? And her family and friends were just freaking out, right? They were just like, how can you do this? What do you mean? You're going to go back to him? Are you crazy? You can't go. What, after everything is done? Da, da, da. and her and I were working together, and I go, are you sure you're making the right, we've done all this work over here, and you were very firmly grounded in your choice, aligned with your vision. And I love those words because I'm going to start using those. Does it align with your vision? Right. And she's like, I don't know. I'm so confused, blah, blah, blah. And then we had like 2 or 3 sessions that were all around the same. We were just going around in circles about, trying to make the right decision, trying to make the right choice. But I could tell that it was now no longer being dictated by her own sense of alignment and vision. It was now being almost motivated by the opinions of others. She'd already kind of publicly committed, to come out. And she'd also publicly come out with some of the stuff that was going on with friends and family. And then I remember on the coaching call with her, and I said, just go back to him. She goes, is this some kind of trick? No, just go back. Well, when you just go back? Well, because of this and this and this and this and that. Well, we've already gone over this. Over and over and over. We've had the last 3 sessions have all been the same. So something needs to change. So I'm going to be the one that changes, and I'm going to support you in your new vision, because it sounds like you have a new direction that you would like to go into. And I said these exact words to her. I said, you can't make a bad choice. You just can't make a bad choice. There is no bad choices. There's just choices and not making choices. That's it. I either make a choice and move, or I don't make a choice and I don't move. There is no right or wrong, because here's what's going to happen. If you go back and things blow up, then you have confirmation. Then you're 100% clear on what your next move is going to be. However, if somehow whatever the vision is that your new vision is comes to fruition, then did you make a bad choice or did you make a good choice? I don't know. Right. But I love that takeaway, because it's such a powerful thing, because a lot of times clients want you to make the choices for them.
Yeah. And the thing is that when we do, like, say, for example, play out into that sometimes as coaches, we're robbing the person from the position of them feeling empowered in their lives. So it's so important for us to really help them, access that place of choice. And when we choose, on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever it is, lens that we want to see it from, if we release the need to be right or wrong or good or bad choice, then what we begin to understand is that life is only here as a feedback loop. So whatever choice we make, we'll get some feedback in return. And that'll make us understand, or would assist us with understanding, if this is aligned or not, right? So it's not about right or wrong. We lean into the choice that we feel it's our vision, that feels aligned for us. And then we get some feedback. And from that feedback, we can check in and say, does it still support the vision that I feel aligned to? And if the answer is no, then we continue to make micro adjustments to lead ourselves towards that vision. So just feeling into that at a nervous system level, like what a relief that is, because the outside world, through family, through friends, through people who intentionally have the best interest, right, and they have the best ideas for us, they may be supplying us with information, like your client that you're speaking of. They might be saying, hey, you should do this and you should do that, and maybe you should consider this and you should consider that. And then we, see movies and documentaries and books, and we have all this information pumping in. If we don't take the time to really, check back in What is it that I'm aligned to? What is it that I have a vision of? Then we will get distracted, and we will not be making our own choice. We will be driving the choices that other people want us to make. So it's so important, and this can take time. I always tell people, take your time listening to you, honoring what is being informed from you. What is it that you feel, inside of you? I don't know, I'm so confused. Well, keep listening. What feels true to you? What is part of your vision? What is in alignment with who you are? Not what you think you should be or what other people tell you you need to be. Who are you here to be today? And does this choice align with that?
And that also becomes a stumbling block as well, because either usually it's a deep subconscious level that there is some denial, okay? Consciously, subconsciously, there's some denial about who they really are, okay? Because when I'm making a choice, sometimes I'm taking so many things into consideration, okay? I move away from my own alignment. I move away from my own vision. And every time I try and come back to my alignment, come back to what my vision is, what gets pulled out is either the opinion of others or all the shoulds that I've heard, right? Either the shoulds that I'm doing to myself or the shoulds that other people have been doing on me, right? And so, and I've seen it where it's almost like that denial convinces us of something entirely different. Okay, it just kind of pulls us almost to a place of conviction in order to protect the need to go against what the social expectations, the familial expectations are. And I think that what you were talking about, that convoluted, like, I don't know, I'm so confused. You're being overstimulated by over information from outside, either usually it's outside people, right? But this is where, like, in that crazy space of the coaching session, I'll say, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to need you to close your eyes, and I'm going to need you to take a really deep breath in through your nose. And blow that out. We're going to slow things down, and then I will just slow my tone, slow things down. We need to slow down the thinking, slow down all the emotions. We need to let things kind of settle, and I'll just kind of use my fingers to kind of settle things down and bring things down. And I'll say, take another deep breath. And then I do this for a while, right? I just kind of put them in a kind of like a little hypnosis space. All along, I've got my question ready. I've just got my question ready. And I've got probably like a 90% success rate. That when I ask that same question to them about the choice that they're trying to make, when they're kind of like eyes closed, taking 3 or 4 deep breaths, listening to my voice, I ask the question, it's one answer that comes out, and it's clear, and it's 100% clear. And they'll say something like, I need to be alone right now. I need space and time for me, right? Or I need to give this another chance for me. That's what feels right for me. But what we forget as humans is the importance and the vitality of breath. It's in that deep, it's in those deep breaths that I can get to a more meditative state, a state of calm, right? Where I can clear the deck, so to speak, like wipe the chalkboard and not have any other distractions. Once you wipe the chalkboard, it's clear, right? Whatever I put in there is whatever the first thing I put in there is the first thing that I put in there. And if I just don't put anything else, that's all that's there. When I have 30 items on the chalkboard and I'm looking around all over the place, what do I choose? What do I choose? I don't know what to choose, right? And so all of a sudden there is no power to choose. I'm terrified, okay, that there's too many options. And I forgot that I can breathe, and and a lot of times I'll say, go to the bathroom, because usually the bathroom is the safest place if you've got kids or if you've got other family members or whatever. I can go in there, lock the door, take a deep breath, turn off the light, right? And most of the time I'm going to get an answer. One.
And I love that because it's so true. I think, going back to the meaning of choice is the act of making a decision between two or more possibilities, right? And if we really tune into that moment to moment, it's like, hey, life is busy. We have social media, we have news, we have demands from our partners, our children, our families, information. It gets confusing when we're just like, right? It's going from all directions and all angles coming in. If we don't take that breath, we don't know what the answer is. So when people are feeling confused or they're feeling, conflicted, like yourself, I either invite them to the breath or I say, you don't have to know now, take your space. And when people are like, I don't have to know now, like I'm feeling the pressure, it's like, you don't have to know right in this moment, take your time. And sometimes with that, giving up permission, let's call it that. Sometimes when you just give the person permission to have the space to think, right there's the answer. Why? Because it is in their body. It is within their core. It's not in the mind. It's not going to be a thought they're going to arrive at. Is a space that they're going to allow in themselves to have the answer or the clarity emerge. So yeah, the choice sometimes isn't through the mind, it's just through the body. It's like, how do I feel about this? Oh, I feel terrified. Okay, so why am I terrified? Well, because I'm going to disappoint my mom, or I'm going to disappoint this person, or okay, so we're getting some information here. This is still being driven by the vision of others. So keep feeling into it. Keep feeling into that terror or that fear. Okay, what is at the core that I'm going to disappoint myself? Okay, so let's keep, going in. If you disappoint yourself, then how do you feel? That's not how I want to be. Okay, so how do you want to be? What is your vision? I want to be true to myself. Okay, great. And if we continue to unpack that a little bit more, if you are true to yourself, then what is the choice that is here for you to make? And we just leave that space open and the person goes, oh my God. But if I make that choice, then this person is going to think this of me and this of that, right? So it's like, this takes time. I'm not here to say that knowing the choice makes life easy. But the more that we make space to feel what is aligned for us and what is true for us, then we can make those micro adjustments as gradually and as slowly as we need to lead and live the life that we're here to live.
It's speaking of alignment, right? As Jolenny's talking, I have a thought, and then as soon as I have the thought, she starts talking about it, right? And so there was a very important point about you don't have to know now. Okay, and so a lot of times when clients are feeling the pressure, okay, to give an answer, right? I say, a perfectly acceptable answer is no, or I don't know. Like that is a perfectly acceptable answer. You know what? I don't know. I can't answer that right now. That's an answer. That is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Mm-hmm.
And, growing up myself, no, and I don't know, were not acceptable answers, right? There was always somehow, I don't know where I came to this conclusion where I had to know an answer, but I also wasn't taught boundaries as a kid, right? So there was, do as I say, okay, no questions asked. I was raised in a, very Latin family. My dad's Colombian, my mother's Cuban, and both very fiery people, very headstrong, and with great conviction. Okay, two people with, heavy conviction about who they were, even though I'm confident now they had no idea who they were, right? But in that time, right, it was like, for me to say why, for me to ask the question, if they would give me a direct order and I would say why, that followed either a slap in the face or a kick in the ass or something like, don't you dare question me.
Correct.
Okay, you just do as you're told.
Mm-hmm.
So now, faced with a question, I felt I had to have a response. And so school was miserable for me, absolutely miserable, because there was so many things going on in my brain all the time. Today they would call that, ADHD, or OCD or whatever. But, I'd be in class trying to focus and there'd just be a million things floating on in my head. And if I was asked a question, it was deer in headlights. So I learned to just freeze.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't say anything. Right. And if I did say I don't know, I felt like an utter failure. Right. And so, the invitation that I give to all my clients is that the way to relieve that pressure of having to make a choice when you're not prepared to make a choice or give a response. You don't have
access to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't have access to it, even though I do have access to it, right? Mm-hmm. It's in my body, right? Mm-hmm. If consciously I can't get access to it because I'm in my conscious state versus in my body state, then I got to say, you know what? I can't make that choice right now, or I can't answer that at this moment, or, I don't know. I'm going to have to get back to you. And that needs to be a perfectly acceptable response for you. You have to take,
and that right there is a power of choice. It's like, I'm choosing to give myself the space I need to become clear what it is that I want to do about this. That is a power of choice right there. Instead of me feeling the pressure of somebody from the external to push me in a direction I'm not clear about, I'm choosing to give myself the space I need to allow that clarity to emerge from within. So,
yeah. Man, and I just got it. Like now I'm like fired up, because it's like, and I'm, for the listeners, right? How many times have you been in a situation where you told someone, I'm not ready to make the choice? You actually verbalized, I'm not ready to make this choice right now. And the person's like, but why? But I don't understand. Why are you putting me through this? Why are you refusing to make a choice? Either way, I'm okay with it. I just need to know. I just need a response. Right. And so they instead of respecting that boundary that you have created, that space that you've just drawn a boundary and created space for yourself by saying, you know what, I'm not ready to make that choice yet, right? And the other person is insistent that they need a response now, right? And so all of a sudden, I feel either pressured into making a choice, or I feel, in many cases, like what you don't recognize in that moment is my sovereignty is being taken from me. And so what do you do in a situation like that, Jolenny? Or what would you suggest when that comes up?
When somebody's pushing?
No, when somebody like I know what I do if somebody's pushing me, and I know if somebody was pushing you. Ain't nobody pushing me, and ain't nobody pushing you. I already know this. I don't even ask that. We've already been through this.
Right.
But when a client is in that situation, how would you guide them in such a state? I'm curious.
That's a great question. Let me think and feel into it for a moment.
Because
So,
I wanted to respond, and I was like, no, I don't want to say this. I want to get yours. So take your time.
I think, you know, a lot of the behavior in the world is unconscious. And if we think back to the systems that have created our personalities, for example, or have constructed our traits, like you were given the example of you being a boy in school, we were brought into a world that had rules and circumstances in which we were not empowered to make our own choices. We were not being given the spaces to feel into our choices. We were told what to choose and what to think. And in the situation that you're reflecting here as an exercise, those two people are playing out the construct of those, systems. That person that is pressing on the other is simply playing out a role that was, I'd say pressed upon that person. So let's say he or she is simply acting out something that was done to them. So I wouldn't want to vilify or make the other person right or wrong. It's just, I would guide my client to say, hey, that pressure that's coming from the outside world doesn't have to be your pressure. You can simply, even if they're not listening to you, you can still honor you and say, I hear what you're saying, and I hear that you're really wanting to know in this moment, but I am not able to give you an answer, and that should be respected. When I do have my answer, I will make sure to communicate to you. Right? And that would create a little bit of friction between them, perhaps. But two people are learning very important things. The one that is pressing, it's learning that, pressure is not what brings the tree into fruition. We don't put the seed and say, okay, grow now. I'm ready. I put you in the soil. I gave you water. There's sun. Come on, tree, grow up. It's like, no, it needs time. Right? And the other person is going to learn that, wow, this wonderful being in front of me is acting as a teacher, as a coach, as a trigger, as a wonderful opportunity for me to remember inside of myself that I am the one who makes the choice around my life. I don't have to give in into outside pressure. I don't have to tap into something that I'm not ready or I'm not able or clear to see in this moment. I can take my time. I can do it in my own rhythm. I can follow my own pace. It doesn't have to be the outside world pushing me to get it. So again, no right or wrong, just feedback, just opportunities, right? And I would just tell the person, take your time, take your time to feel into your answer, not think what the right answer is, feel into it. No one outside of you can give you that. So yeah.
Yeah, I've done that before. Sometimes I tell them, I say, listen, if a person's heavily pressuring you, what you might want to do is usually they're moving at a very fast pace, which means they're not breathing. Okay. They're very shallow breathing, right? And it's a heavy volume of language and dialogue coming from this person. Right. So what it does is it prevents you from breathing because you're just absorbing all of the language. So what you could do is put your hands up like this. That's it. That's a universal sign for stop, but it's very different than saying, hey, stop. Okay. You could just like go just as soon as you do this, the other person is going to take a step back. right? It's energy, right? It's energy. And at that point, just go, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from. But in this moment, I'm just not ready to make that choice or make that decision. So if you need me to make a choice or a decision in this moment, you're going to have to make it for me, because I am not prepared to make a choice. If this means we can't move forward, then I guess that's the choice, and I'm okay with that. But I am not in any position right now to make a choice. I still need time, right? And I always say, just, kind of like give this, and it's not like, right? Very different. The two very, your body has a very powerful way of sending a message, right? But you're back here kind of like, hey, yo, I hear you. I understand. However, I'm still not ready. And a lot of times in a very intense exchange, like you were saying, I love what you said right here, right? It's just the construct of those systems being played out, okay, in this experience, in this exchange, because it's what they're familiar with. It's what was programmed in based on what they experienced in their, most likely in their childhood, probably the engagement between their parents. Okay. This is what they knew. I'll tell you one. And it shook me. This is years ago, right? Before I knew anything about personal development. I was 20, I don't know, let's say 20, maybe 22 years old. And I'm in a relationship, and it's just, very, very toxic, very intense, lots of fighting. And towards the end, it was just always, no matter how it started, always ended up with some fight. And I remember one time we were sitting at a table at a restaurant, and it was starting to get heated. And I was like, I don't even, who knows what I was saying, but I was doing this. I was like waving my finger, right? And I was like, you need to listen to what I'm saying right now. Let's just say that was what the words were coming out of my mouth. And she took a step back. I saw her eyes go up like this. And she's like, don't you point your finger at me. Right. And it was for whatever reason, I was like, why am I? And then I remember my father, every time he got angry, he would do this. Like, even my whole body posture is automatic. I can go into that instantaneous role of aggressor, right? And forcibly getting my point across by pointing my finger at you, right? And I gotta tell you, I came up for a reason, obviously. I never pointed my finger at anybody, or I mean, specific, and even another girlfriend, ever again. Okay. When and that's a beautiful thing about awareness. Sometimes it's all you need. Sometimes the awareness itself hits so hard. The realization was like, oh my God, I'm becoming my father. Right. And I got to tell, and I think that was probably one of the things that probably shifted me or got me from never doing it again. Because I had said, I'm never going to be like my father, ever.
Right. So if we go back to what we were saying or talking about at the beginning, is this an alignment with me? Right.
Beautiful.
So in that moment, you said to yourself, this is not in alignment with me. So you found your driver inside, and from that place, you made a different choice. That's the power of choice right there. And I think, that moment of awareness for you changed how you operated and how you, it shifted how you showed up in relationships. So we are given that space again and again and again on a moment-to-moment basis. Like, the feedback that we're getting from the outside world, from our own inner world, is giving us information as to, for us to check in. Is this in alignment with who I'm here to be? So I really appreciate the fact that you're bringing up the breath and the spaciousness, because that is how we access choice. That's how we remember the power of choice. It's like we need to make space for us to listen to what is true for us, what is in alignment for us, become aware of what it is that we're doing, how we're showing up. Does this feel in alignment with me? The answer is no. Then what choice do I need to make to become the person that I'm here to be?
And on that same note, many, many years later, I recognize so many qualities of my father that are in me. Beautiful qualities, and I rejected so much of my father because of the relationship he had with my mother. And so, you throw the baby out with the bathwater, but ultimately, there are so many things that are naturally, instinctively, who he was as a person. I have so many of those traits, my ability to tell stories, my humor, okay, my work ethic, right? There's so many things about my father that when I stopped resisting those things about him that I truly loved about him, right? Because I was so angry or resentful or whatever bullshit was going on in my mind and in my heart at the time. But as I began to heal, I was able to compartmentalize and allow my father to be human. It was like, he ain't perfect. Sure, he made a lot of mistakes, and there's many qualities about my father that I choose to not, like, I make a conscious decision to not be like that. But as a host, as an entertainer, as a man, as a provider, all of those things, so honorable in my father, and those I've chosen to embrace, to embrace in my life and be that version of him for me.
That's so beautiful. And as you were sharing that, I was going in my mind and feeling into some of the, I guess, perspectives that I've also invited other people that work with me to think through. It's like no emotion we feel is wrong, because we as human also, we have choice, and we have a full spectrum of emotions that animals perhaps don't have, right? The other parts of nature do not have access to. And, you chose to see the beauty and the traits and, ways in which your dad was as a person that also are within you. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is, if we think of emotions as not being right or wrong, and we simply think of them as, there are teachers and there are good qualities and there are, vehicles that I use in my life to serve me and to serve the world for a greater good, then we are making the choice to use that complete set of emotions for the right reasons, or for the reasons that are aligned with us. So, sometimes let's just, for example, play out this thought of, I'm so angry. Jolenny, I'm so angry. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be this, and I don't want to feel that. And I want to get rid of this, and I want to get rid of that. And when we go into choice, it's like, well, what are you choosing to do with that emotion? Because if you're choosing it to separate you, if you're choosing it to make you bitter, if you're choosing it to give you, a fence that is invisible to keep the good people and the bad people away from yourself, then no wonder it feels how it feels. But if you choose anger, for example, to be an activating emotion that is helping you see how you can ignite yourself into action, and there's something really beautiful here. You have the choice to do that. You have the choice to give anger a healthy space to be felt, to be, an informant of some story that you need to hear for yourself. It doesn't have to be good or bad, right? So how are we choosing to view, ourselves? How are we choosing to view our emotions? How are we choosing to view the people that we have welcomed into our life, that we grew up with in our life? Our stories, our narratives are really impacted by the choices that we make inside. I can look at my life and say, I choose to see my life as a place of struggle and challenge. I choose to see my life as a place that was hard and, gave me a lot of trauma. Or I can choose to see my life as the most perfect gymnasium, the most perfect environment in which my soul came through to evolve and to grow into the person that I am today. So how am I choosing to see? How am I choosing to view? How am I choosing to act? How am I choosing to align with the vision that I have? So go ahead.
No, I was about to say, I was going to ask Jolenny if she had any closing words of wisdom that she wanted to give to our listeners. And again, she read my mind.
Thank you, Omar. It's been such an honor, as always, to speak with you in this way. And I'm grateful for the ones that are choosing to tune in here with us. I think, take your time making the choices that you're here to make. And if I had any exercise to offer for people to explore is, write 2 columns. And 1 column, write down irrational beliefs. And then the other column, write out, this is my truth. And the irrational belief column will have all the stories or narratives that you have maybe picked up along the way in your journey, that maybe may have come from the outside world, may have come from family, from culture, from other influences. You'll see that list. And then on the right side column where you have the truth, then check in with yourself in the spaces that you need to have in order for you to translate from irrational belief to this is my truth. And let that exercise be a guiding post as to you tuning into your vision. Like, this is my vision of who I want to be in my life. This is my truth. This is the irrational belief, and this is my truth.
Man, it's almost like I could name this episode, this is my truth. But it's about it's about the choice, right? So Jolenny, thank you so much. If my listeners would like to reach out to you, for coaching, for consultation, or to follow you on social media, what's the best way for them to find you?
The best way would be my website. My website is sacredsouliving.com, or any social media platforms. I'm able to be found by, people searching me at Sacred Soul Living. So that would be the best ways to reach me. And I'll be happy to connect with anyone who wants to share what they felt from listening to this episode, or if they want to connect with me further. I'm here to serve.
She is absolutely here to serve. I love you so much, Jolenny.
Thank you so much, Omar. Thank you for this. I appreciate you. And thank you, everybody.
Ciao.
Mwah. Love you. Bye-bye.